All right. Well, welcome everyone. This is Founder First CDC Small Business Essentials webinar, how to adjust your revenue model to drive customer adoption and attract investors. So thank you all for attending with us today. My name is Shaylin Scott, the Executive Director of Founders First CDC. And to go over how our program will go today, we'll have a brief introduction, our course of Founders First CDC and the webinar purpose, and introduction to our subject matter experts, Lisa Scott and Paul Wins, background on recurring revenue and the benefits of it, as well as a great discussion with our two panelists here, as well as opportunities to attend our upcoming webinars and other resources. As I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions at all or comments or anything you want to share, feel free to add them to our chat and we will make sure you get access to the webinar post the event as well. So we will get started right now. So a little bit about Founders First CDC before we start on the purposes. We are a nonprofit small business accelerator that supports diverse founders achieve growth through education, coaching, and long-term support. So we love to see founders from diverse backgrounds be the next job creators and make huge changes and shifts in their local communities. So we definitely try to support these small businesses as they grow and scale. And two of the small businesses that are doing so, you'll get to meet today. So a little bit about our webinar is, if you can back up just a little bit. We're also going to talk about adding recurring revenue and how to significantly scale your companies, and how adding this revenue can improve customer satisfaction, improve your investment prospects, and discover how these two leaders in our industry are able to do that using changes and shifts in their revenue model. So we'll get going. Our speakers today are Paul Wins, founder and CEO of FlexAir, Lisa Scott, the founder and CEO of Intuitive Edge, and we'll let you know a little bit more about them, and I'll also let them tell you something about themselves too. So how do companies grow? Or how do the companies that are looking to grow make these shifts and changes? Well, some people, for some, increasing the revenue comes in two different ways, either launching new products and services or adapting their business model and their revenue model. And so you can see the difference between the two. And some find that some areas are more successful than others. And one area we're going to talk about is recurring revenue and how that can make a huge change and shift in your business. So why is that? Well, there are 7 different reasons that it can definitely be beneficial for your company. Is better income management, ease for your customer or client, opportunities for marketing, more engagement. You can earn more up and cross sell, higher lifetime value for your customers. Business consistency and predictability is another big one, and it's more appealing to investors. So when you talk about recurring revenue, 2 of the ones that come up are subscription and usage-based models. And those kind of enable your company to enter into new markets, defeat these competitors, get a lifetime value for these existing customers, and it also amounts to greater profits over a longer period of time. So ongoing support and seeing that growth long-term is a great benefit for companies who add this revenue to their business. And what about the customers? They enjoy it as well. It's less friction. They're more satisfied. There's more consistency. They don't have to worry as much about receiving the products or services that you're offering because it's on a recurring basis. So establishing this convenience and a common and consistent rapport with your customer is more opportunities for engagement. So this is some of the comments that some customers have had. So let's get going. Our first panelist we have is Paul Wins. He's the founder and CEO of FlexAir Flight Training. And FlexAir is a flight school for the aviation enthusiast, which I love that. Looking to start a career in aviation or fly for recreation. Locations are in Kansas and San Diego. It's an aviation company led by minorities and veterans focused on increasing minority representation in every corner of the industry. He is a retired naval aviator, Boeing program manager, Department Head for the U.S. Naval Reserve, a graduate of Stanford Engineering, Aeronautics, and Astronautics, U.S. Naval Academy graduate, NASA internship program, enrolled in the PhD program for U.S. UCSD Rady School of Management. That is a lot. I love it, Paul. So welcome to our conversation today.
Thank you very much. You know, a shorter way of saying that is I'm an airplane nerd, and I haven't decided what I want to be when I grow up yet, but I'm working on it. So
I love it.
Happy to be included here today. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you. Constant growth. Great. And next up, we have Lisa Scott, who is the founder and CEO of Intuitive Edge, an alternative legal services company. Intuitive Edge invented the OASIS cycle, a process and method that delivers legal services to corporations in a highly efficient and cost-effective manner. She is on the board of directors of the TED Conference, Volks Resources VP Strategy and Business Development, former director of Customer Solutions Sales Engagement Practices for Ericsson, Partnership and Strategy Implementation, in-house counsel for AFL Telecommunications, California Western School of Law, all right, University of Oxford International Law Certificate, as well as a BA in Chinese Language and Anthropology, University of Michigan. That is quite a repertoire you have there. Anthropology. That one threw me. Well, welcome, Lisa. Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here. And you know, like Paul said, I kind of was a nerd around contracts for a long time. So, you know, hence the business is all around contracts, but it's also around pioneering sort of new ways to tackle some of the legal services that are provided for businesses.
Beautiful. Well, thank you both for joining us today, and we can get started on our conversation. I'm going to try and get as many questions as I can in the amount of time that we have. And all of our attendees, if you have questions at all too, feel free to pop them in the chat as well. So first up, the brief blurb that I gave about your business, I know did not do it justice. So if you can just give us a quick overview of what your business is and what you do, we'd appreciate it. So I'll start with you, Lisa.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Lisa Scott. I'm the CEO and founder of Intuitive Edge. I founded the company over 5 years ago. It's been an interesting road the last 5 years and an exciting road. We are what you would consider an alternative legal services company, which is not so much like a law set up like a law firm, but we also provide certain legal services and also operational type of services beyond legal services to try to provide a full, cost-effective, more value-added service in terms of legal services. And our expertise is around obviously contracts contracts management, data privacy, negotiation, and intellectual property. So those are the main areas that we would focus on. We typically will provide a service for high volume or complex contracts projects. So that often arises in an M&A situation, for example. So if a large company wants to divest one of its business units, we can come in and help separate and transition all of the third-party contracts that are involved in that transition. That is really where our expertise lies, and we're very good at doing that. We can also provide an outsourced solution for contracts management. So we do have that service as well, which we're providing to a large security company currently. And we're basically managing all of their contracts function on their behalf. And that includes procurement contracts, as well as sales contracts, as well as other commercial transactions that they may be needing us to monitor, track, and negotiate, or update, or renew, all those types of activities. Let's see. So I think that's pretty much it for now, and get into a little bit more as we go through the webinar.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a lot better than my little blurb. So much more information. What about you, Paul? Let us know about your business.
Yeah, FlexAir is a flight school for folks who want to either they're embarking on their very first career, or they're interested in a career transition, and they want to become a commercial pilot to fly for the airlines. And so for me and for the team at the company, it really is all about the people and not the training. My co-founder, a gentleman named Charlie Copeland, who's based out in Kansas. I'm here in San Diego. He started the company as a side hustle way back in 2016 with a loan from his grandmother and one aircraft, and he got lessons and then became an instructor and built it from there. And I met him in 2018, and we decided to grow and expand the company together. Charlie lives in Kansas. He's been really active volunteering for the National Gay Pilots Association, super plugged in to lots of the aviation communities. We found a key employee out here in San Diego, a gal named Hannah Fowler, who's been the president of Women in Aviation, the local chapter here. And so our philosophy is it's all about building community. So instead of just delivering the training, for us, it's all about the personal touch. And it's about the career growth of the person, because for us, it's more than just the license that you're going to get, but that you're entering this community of pilots and you're going to have a long career in it. And so we want to mentor people along the way. So we get caught up in the shiny planes and everything, but we try to keep it focused more on the people and the adventures they're going to have in their career.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. That is definitely a better description of what you do as well. I love how you mentioned side hustles and where you started. And that's kind of where we're going to start from. So our whole topic today is about adjusting your revenue model to drive customer adoption and attracting investors. So thinking back to when you started, what did that revenue model look like? What were some things that you were doing in order to move beyond the side hustle? Where did you start? And I'll let either one of you start
there. Okay, I can go ahead. So like I said, I started the company 5 years ago, and my company is 100% self-funded. And I was trying to figure out ways that I could make money without investing too much money and without having to go out and get investors. I just didn't feel like I needed to go through that path, that I could do this on my own. And so one of the things that I did in the beginning was acquire a lot of small business clients and work with them specifically on their contracts issues. So, there's a lot of small businesses out there that need help, kind of one-off type of help. So me and my team, I would bring in, different attorneys, different people that would partner with me on these, negotiations or, other, whatever the contract issue was at hand that we were working with. And we would work with, some small companies. I was going out myself at a lot of events, finding those customers. So basically I was bringing the customer to the attorneys that would then work on it. So it did bring us some revenue, and most of the time it was hourly revenue, until I started to get to know people and get some experience under me. Then we could start talking about, if you want me to be involved in a lot of your deals or in meetings, you can actually have me be available for a certain fee, a monthly fee, and then I could bring in my attorneys at a discount. So that was something that worked for quite some time, because, some businesses want to have a legal representation there all the time so that that person can help them spot the issues, because they don't have that training, right? So I actually played that role quite a few times, and that was, to me, part of my networking and relationship building efforts, which I was at the same time also doing with large companies. And I ended up targeting large company Dell Technologies, and ended up getting a contract with them. So which was my goal, so that I could build the company and bring in a bigger project, so that I could then grow the company from the bigger project. So, but one thing I'll say about going through this process is it's been, some people might think it's kind of slow. I mean, it took a long time to get a large contract. It took, I would say 3 years of before a project actually started for a large company, and that type of revenue started coming in. So a lot of work and effort, but a huge amount of learning, a huge amount of trying different things, huge amount of figuring out what customers are going to pay for, how they're going to pay for things. I didn't really know. In a services business, it's very up in the air. It's kind of, you're providing a service. You need to figure out what people are going to write a check for. I mean, that's the whole point of you having a business. And if you just try to do your own model and just try to force that on people, it doesn't always work. And it doesn't always build the, relationship that you want. So we work with our customers pretty closely. So as we've developed strong relationships with more and more companies and more mid-market and large corporations, we're able to figure out, some other ways maybe to get some revenue from those companies, including we're developing more IP around my Oasis cycle. We've developed a method and process as to how we deliver our services as a team that is very collaborative, very cost effective, and very efficient. It's a different way to deliver legal services than is normal, than is a traditional way. And once the customers experience us, then they start to trust us and they start to want us to work with them all the time. We've already gotten repeat business. We've gotten additional clients because of the work we do. We work with other third parties all the time, and those third parties will hire us. I mean, we've already had that happen, several times. So once we get visible and the trust is there, then we can start talking about, how we can provide them the service, how they pay for it. We talk a lot about this subscription model. That's not something that's always comfortable for large companies to pay for our type of services. Though we've had some of those discussions about potentially doing those kind of things. So, but to me, it's a process. It will come, but it's a process.
I like how you've taken us on the journey. It started here. This is where you're going. And we're going to talk about where you want to go too.
Okay.
So I love it. So what about you, Paul? Where did you say you started almost at the side hustle from your co-founder there, and it grew from there? Tell us about that journey.
Yeah, for flight training, it's an interesting industry because everything is perceived as a sale per unit hour of delivery, right? So there's very few flight schools that charge a fixed kind of tuition, and even the ones that do, it's just widely known what the labor rates are that are behind it for instruction, what the maintenance cost on the aircraft. It's an industry that's very transparent about the costs, and so that's beneficial to the student who's buying in, so they understand what they're getting. But it also kind of reduces things down to very transactional and very difficult for you to differentiate yourself by saying, our aircraft gets you the same license that another aircraft would get. So people tend to flock towards cost, and so it's really difficult to then say, no, we're adding some value on top of that. So that was the challenge that we noticed, right from the very beginning, is that, kind of a low margin industry. So how do we deliver some value in a way that the customer understands? And what we discovered as we were moving out of the side hustle stage and really trying to build a sales pipeline that is more stable, because the conversion time is a long time for the types of sales that we do. The cheapest certification, like the very entry level license, if you will, that you can get is the private pilot license. It takes about 3 to 6 months to get. And that is a minimum of around $10,000, depending on where you train, right? So flight training is expensive, and it's a big financial decision. The whole journey to become an airline pilot is a 2-year-long journey, of which the minimum cost is going to be $60,000 in order to get all of that training to you. Now, the payoff is that you're going to get an income where the top end income and the benefits are going to be up there with doctors and lawyers and dentists and engineers, and you don't even need a college degree in order to get your foot in the door. So there's a big payoff for it. It's just that it's a big commitment up front. And so our conversion timeline is a long, long time, right? It's a consultative sales process. You're talking to the potential student for many, many weeks, typically around 3 months is the conversion time. And what are we doing during that 3 months? We're helping them plan their finances. We're helping them understand the industry. It's a very opaque industry that, there's lots of acronyms. Aviators love acronyms. So there's lots of acronyms and terminology and jargon. It's very intimidating to outsiders, especially people who, when you look at the industry, 95% of the airline pilot population in the US are male Caucasians, right? So there's that dimension of it too, of just trying to help people understand that they belong. There's a place for them here too. So during this long process, we realized, oh, we're delivering value here, right? We're mentoring, we're helping people understand how they could fit in, we're helping people plan their finances, we're helping people connect with financing, loans, and set up payment plans for them and all of that. And so, I'm kind of teeing up our idea for recurring revenue here. We realized even before a person comes in the door, we have this super deep relationship with them. We're talking to them, their brothers, their sisters, mom and dad, all the people that are involved in this big momentous, career decision. We're talking to all of them. And, that's a valuable conversation to have that we enjoy doing and that we're really good at. So that kind of set the stage for us for how to kick it up to the next level.
That is great. I love how it's two different businesses, but both moving along the same path of growth and change. And I love how you mentioned how there was something that led to a shift. So if you can talk to me about what was it that was kind of that aha moment that said, okay, maybe we need to try some different things in order for us to be more consistent and have this recurring revenue come in. Was there a person, an event, or a class or something that you attended that said, this is what we need to add to our services?
I can take that one because it's real recent and it's not a good aha moment. It's a oh crap aha moment because we went through the Founders First boot camp about a year ago. In fact, maybe a little bit more than a year ago. We graduated back in April of last year. It feels like a million years ago, and that's where me and my co-founder first started really getting introduced to the idea of a recurring revenue model, because it's really big in the Founders First ecosystem. So we learned a lot about it, kind of got us thinking, what can we do with this? Maybe we put this in the sales pipeline. We're not sure. We're really busy. Sales are good right now. And we had our best year yet last year, in the midst of COVID, because we were thankful that we were able to get ahead of all of that and able to continue operating because aviation is critical infrastructure. So we were smart about it and our students were responsible. So we, knock on wood, didn't have any problems with COVID. So we kept training. What happened though is that, we're a very seasonal company. We have lots and lots of ups and downs because training is dependent on weather. It's dependent on, if a person gets laid off from their service sector job, then they're probably more likely to be ready to make that career change. So we saw a lot of traffic around this time last year when other companies were having some trouble. We were, trying to add capacity. The opposite happened when the lockdowns ended in like the first quarter of this year. People start getting their jobs back. It looks more likely that their service job, that they can go back to that. The good stuff is on the horizon. And so we didn't get many students in the door in the first 3 months of this year. And so that got me and my co-founder thinking, oh crap, it is time to institute this recurring revenue model, because first of all, we need a robust pipeline of people coming in, and we need to monetize that pipeline because we're talking to people, for hours and hours to help them understand, where to go. And if we lose them to another school because that other school had a better student loan or something like that, we can still retain that relationship and monetize that relationship because they're going to need help later with career counseling and where to find their first job after they finish school. So it was that, they say necessity is the mother of invention. So it was the first quarter of this year when we realized we got to get serious about this stuff. And so we kicked it off then and are still building it today.
What about you, Lisa? Was there something that said, I need to make some adjustments to change? Oh, you're still on mute.
Thank you. I thought I was thinking about forgetting to push that button and then I forgot. So yes, there was definitely an aha moment when needed to change some things, but it was good that it happened and I'm glad it happened. But it was during the first couple of months of our first large scale project with the Fortune 500 company, basically. We were struggling with making the team work how we wanted it to work, and the customer is not happy with how it was working or not working. So we had to make some pretty major changes super quickly. Like if we didn't do that quickly, we could have lost the project. But it forced us to implement some things, spend long nights for like a couple weeks to fix everything and to implement a pretty robust standardized process that we then can use going forward. So, I mean, it was definitely worth the effort, but we had to spend a lot of time fixing that situation. So, and it's funny when people say when you start a company and there's all this path and there's growing pains. I mean, it's almost like you have to go through these horrible moments to get to the other side, to get to those, to build your business, basically. Because we'll never have that problem again. It will never happen again. We have tons of material and standardized ways of working that we didn't have before that we have incorporated into our intuitive edge process. And then that we can customize it to the customer, but it's something that we needed to have that we did not have sufficiently when we started the project. And it was very noticeable to the customer.
Well, thank you for that. Kind of speaking of the customer, making those shifts and adjustments, has that led to attracting more customers? And if so, how?
Yeah, absolutely. Because not only are we able to, I mean, the sales process is so much easier too, because we can say we did this, we have this, we have this, we have this. We can modify this and adapt this to your business like this, and we can explain everything that we can do because we're very consultative in our selling. So it's it's much better to be able to show a solution that you've already done. You've made mistakes. You can even point out the mistakes that we're not going to make or that we can prevent the customer from making because we've made them, right? So it's definitely helped quite a bit. It's helping us with responding to requests for proposals. We have many standard responses now to a proposal, so we can just crank out proposals now pretty quickly. So definitely it's helped grow the business, and it will continue to grow the business. And that was the inflection that we needed to push us to the next level, really, is what it was.
What about you, Paul? Has that attracted more customers to your business as well?
Yeah, it's done a couple of things, and one is it's definitely given us a better channel to bring in more customers. The other thing that it's done is because now it's almost like there's this other tier of service that we have now, right? The top tier is you're in the aircraft actively training with us, and you're training with us full time. But now there's this intermediate tier where you're in the subscription-based system and you're getting the coaching, the mentoring, and the content that we put together, and can come into the community and exchange information with all of the other student pilots or candidates that are in the community. So what that does is it qualifies leads a lot more, right? Because for us, it's difficult to tell the difference between a student who saw a movie about airplanes and is super excited, but the first time you put them in front of a book and say, oh no, you have to know everything that's in this book before you can, start flying around in a plane. There's actually some work here, not just, nice music and having fun. Then it's difficult to tell the difference between that kind of a student and a student who they live it, they eat and breathe aviation, and they want to become a pilot no matter what. That's our perfect student. But it's difficult to tell the difference between the two. But once they've been in the community for a while, they've attended a few of the webinars, they've had a couple of one-on-ones with one of our coaches. We kind of get a feel for, who's going to be a really great candidate, and who is a great candidate to be hired later on as an instructor, because we live and die by how good our flight instructors are. So that's almost, I guess, an unintended or an unanticipated benefit is it just interacting with the candidates at this level, makes them stickier as a customer, and allows us to get to know them before they even go to that next tier of service where they come in the door and are flying the planes.
Well, congratulations to both of you for that. That is phenomenal. And seeing the growth and depth of your businesses, have you attracted outside investors or those who are loving the work that you're doing because of the changes and additions that you've made to your business?
I can answer that. Am I attracting investors or outside customers? Or
yes, investors and those wanting to support the work that you're doing.
Right. Maybe not so much investors. I mean, I've gotten calls or inquiries, but I don't usually entertain those right now. I'm really focused on continuing to build to the level that I want to build it to, without any investors. We're very, me, when I say we, it's me and my team. I have an executive team and myself, and we're very, we're very passionate about how we're going about this. We have tons of experience with what we do and how we do it. Now, my executive team members may become investors and become more part of the company as far as being more invested in what we're doing and our success or failure of what we're doing. I will say too that just in general, as the word gets around, we are not just attracting more customers, but also very talented attorneys as well. We're starting to get and I mean, I would consider them kind of like an investor, because they're coming in providing their services, right? So they're making my business really work, and the people are what makes everything successful or not. So having very strong talent coming to me is super important and valuable to me. And we're building a reputation for being a great place to work. We have flexibility. We do everything remotely. We can major contracts, projects, very complex, 100% remotely. And our team is very synergized in doing so. So it's kind of an attractive place for attorneys that want a different environment or a different type of job from whatever it is they're doing. They could be in-house, it could be at a law firm. We don't actually bring anybody on that doesn't have direct business experience in-house in an in-house setting. But I'm actually really happy about the fact that we get so many people that want to work with us.
What about you, Paul?
Yeah, and for us, we're going to be looking for investors on a longer horizon. We have some orders in for brand new electric aircraft, zero emissions, all electric aircraft that they're still we're waiting for them to come off of the assembly line. They're brand new, first of their kind. So in about 2 years, we're going to be looking really hard at ways that we could bring in investors somehow, because new aircraft are expensive, and so in the meantime, though, the partners that we had been looking hard for a couple of years, and it was really difficult to find the right candidates, especially during COVID, is we need partnerships with banks, because our students, they need student loans, and flight training doesn't give you a college degree. It's purely vocational training. So the big federal loan programs that everybody gets access to normally, for collegiate programs, that you don't get that for flight training. So affordability and loans were a big deal for us. We can use some of our own cash to originate loans and payment programs, but that's such a limited amount compared to the need. So we've been really trying to attract banks to help us set up a student loan program. And we went from, beating the bushes and finding nobody to recently we now have two banks and two different loan programs, plus an income share agreement program with a fintech company. And I don't think any of these folks would have looked at a small business like us and seen anything but risk if it hadn't have been for the fact that we had a more mature sales system and had some recurring revenue that was being stood up around it. So I think for us, those partnerships with the financial institutions probably wouldn't have happened unless we would have started getting our act together with the recurring revenue or some sort of model that stabilize our sales pipeline.
I love the flexibility that you both had in your business. And you both mentioned different changes or adjustments you had to make due to COVID. Were some of those changes that you had to make some things that you're going to continue to do post this pandemic if we ever get out of it?
I mean, for me, we've always worked in a remote environment. I mean, I know that COVID forced that on a lot of people, but we were, I think, able to kind of perfect it. And I don't think we would go back to doing it any other way. We may need to travel, sometimes to visit a customer or have a meeting or something, but now we're very comfortable, I should say, with working in the remote environment, and so are our customers. So, that's probably something that we're going to continue to do. It saves a lot of money not to have a big office, and we've figured out ways to get people up and running as far as their laptops and our platform that we use for the team and the different tools that we use for our team. So it's that's definitely, we'll continue to do it. In fact, it would actually be less efficient for us to have to go travel and be at places at this point.
Yeah, and for us at FlexAir, fundamentally, that you got to be in an aircraft with with an instructor to train, right? So, fortunately, and I mean, it was really sketchy right at the beginning. About a year ago, we knew we could keep operating. We didn't know, is it responsible? How do we keep people safe? So we had to do a bunch of research on our own. Luckily, my wife is a biologist, and so she's connected to a bunch of people who are real smart on epidemiology. And eventually the city and the county and the government started pushing out some information. So, we had to do the temperature checks and the masks and all of that stuff and sanitizing the planes. And we started doing the same stuff that the major airlines were doing to sanitize the cabins of our aircraft and just do all of that stuff. Fortunately, I don't think a lot of that is going to have to continue, going forward. That can be something that we just kind of keep on standby. We've got our playbook for if there's a worldwide pandemic again, and I'm not going to forget what that playbook is, because who knows if it could happen again. But the permanent change that did happen was, we realized that there's the classroom and one-on-one teaching that needs to happen on the ground before and after you're in an aircraft, and we realized that that can be done via Zoom, and so that's an option if people want to do that, so that you do whatever you need to on Zoom, and then you just show up at the aircraft and get in and kick the tires and go flying. But there was still a need to have a space that is the community, right? So people can come in, they can tell the story about what their last flight was like, they can sit down, they can study, they can have a quiet space. And so that changed the way that we look at our footprint. Whereas, now I'm never going to have a back office that I'm going to have in, doing billing or something in an office. That's all going to be remote. Every square foot of space that we have that we recently moved into, it's a larger space now for us in San Diego. Every square foot is space for the students, right? So for us, that's all revenue generating space. None of it is back office. None of it is admin. I'm one of the co-owners of the company, and I hang out in one of the classrooms. And if a student needs it, then they kick me out, and I go to the coffee shop, across the street to finish my emails. So it's really kind of changed the way permanently that we're going to look at any footprint that we have, because we can just do all the work remotely.
I tell you, COVID has definitely led us to be more efficient and thoughtful about our time and space. That's
Mhm.
one of the beautiful things. And where you are in your business right now and the growth that you envision for the future, who are you looking to when it comes to advice or guidance? Because you can work so hard in your business, you forget about, you still need to make some adjustments, or it's hard to see what's going on if you're inside the forest. So, who are you reaching out to, or what type of guidance are you seeking to continue to grow in the right direction?
Um, I guess I'll go first. So I have several places to go, including your organization. I went through the programs, the boot camp and the Founders First program, which if you do the work, it's very helpful. A lot of information, a lot of things that I learned about that. One of the things that I did very early on in my business, because I'm not good at financial um, things in general, I did bring on a CPA slash CFO from the very beginning. I invested in that myself because I knew that guidance from the beginning. So I'm glad I did that looking back. And then I also have hired and do have currently like a coach, like a mentor coach, that I would always want to have somebody like that. That's, I can have any conversation with, talk about anything, get ideas from, even get, some pointers about myself, personality wise, things like that. So I definitely think it's super important to have mentors around. And the other thing is, I do talk to a lot of my CEO friends who are also building businesses. So I have a few friends like that are, I mean, those friends are invaluable because you're all going through the same types of things. You can talk about the same types of things pretty easily. You get lots of ideas. But I would say the foundational stuff, the stuff I don't want to do on my own, like the financial, I definitely have that covered. And then anything as far as being supportive and getting ideas and going forward, that's important. I would say in general, it's really important to have people that are not going to give you bad advice, though, too, on the flip side, because there's a lot of people that want to say you should do it this way, you should do it that way. But you got to kind of vet, like, where are they getting that information, or how do they know that? So that's another thing to balance, is your own confidence in how you want to move things forward versus what people are telling you. So
Yeah, and for me, it's been a really similar situation. Definitely plus one to the whole idea of you should be bringing somebody in to help you look at the financials very early. That's quite frankly a mistake that we made at FlexAir. Is we never quite got out of the side hustle way of doing bookkeeping. Until it was too late and we had a lot that had been done, and so we had to invest a lot of time and sweat and money into correcting the books and rebuilding some bookkeeping systems, and just getting a robust accounting close procedure in place. And that if I had it to do over again, my interest is definitely in finance and accounting. That's one of the things that interests me the most about the business world, especially as an entrepreneur. But I think I could have done a better job realizing at the beginning, like, ooh, I need some help. I can't do this do it yourself right from the beginning. And it would have been better for me if I would have sought that particular type of mentorship right at the beginning. And so we've got that in place now. We've got a good pace going. But I definitely second that unless you're a person who feels really, really comfortable with all of the not just the theory, but the pushing the buttons of bookkeeping, of can you get in there and actually do an accounting close and track everything. If you're at that level, awesome, you've got a leg up on most founders. But if you don't, look for help and look for a trusted source. And mentorship could also be from a person who's a trusted contractor or or somebody that you have a business relationship with, but it's the right kind of business relationship and you trust them. And maybe part of what you're paying them for is to look over their shoulder while they're doing everything and to get some coaching so that you can grow into it, as the company gets bigger. But that's real important. And of course, the mentorship and the coaching, yeah. For me, it's definitely been a need to go outside of the, your investors, your board of directors, your board advisors. Those are there for like businessy types of things, but I also need a place to go to if I'm having a bad day and just want to complain, or I had an argument with my co-founder, or I stubbed my toe today and I just want to complain about it. You really need a network to do that, because it's a long journey and it can get lonely at times as a small business owner. So yeah, that you definitely need a personal mentor of some kind or a network.
You kind of touched on my next question I had, Paul, was if you could think back to when you started, what would you tell your younger self? What advice would you give yourself from the beginning to say, don't do this again?
Oh man, well, there's so many. Do we have another hour and a half?
What's the big one? Think of the big one.
I would say, that probably the biggest one for me would have been to ask for help earlier, right? Because we get caught up in this mythology of entrepreneurship where it's all about, the Steve Jobs like entrepreneur who's this solo genius who just is a visionary and they know how to do everything and they can just do it all. And of course, the reality of it is really different than that. And so I think that if I would have really, embrace that mindset a little bit more, especially at the beginning, I would have, instead of expecting myself to become an expert in a bunch of stuff overnight, I think I would have reached out a little bit sooner to, to ask for some help from friends and other people in my business network, and because if you're asking for help, it doesn't mean that that you don't know how to do it, or you're a failure necessarily. It just means that you're good at your thing, and as it turns out, running a business is really hard, and you need to know a lot of stuff.
Yes, my turn. I would say don't have too high of expectations about how quickly you're going to make money and how persistent you have to be. I've had my business for over 5 years and we're doing really well now. But when people say that it takes persistence when you're building a business, it means be persistent on steroids. I mean, it's literally like you just literally cannot ever think that you cannot get to the goal that you want to get to. And you have to lower the expectation as far as how long it's actually going to take. I remember going into some, I guess, webinars or meetings, and people would say, oh yeah, I had this business and it took 1 year and now we're $1 million in 1 year. And I'm thinking, how in the world would that happen? And even if it did, it's probably really rare. And I actually don't want that to happen. Like looking back, okay, when I started, I did want that to happen. But now looking back, I feel like because the pace is perfect to where we're at now, because we're able to build a lot of foundations that we wouldn't have been able to build. And we're going to be able to grow the business even more because of that at this point. So, I mean, that's one of the things, is kind of lower the expectations as far as how quick you can actually get, make the money and I was down in the trenches for like 3 years, never thinking I was going to make any money. And I wasn't even, I ended up not even expecting, I just kept going. And I'm like, it's either this or I have to go back to a corporate job. And I'm like, no, I'm just going to still do this. So I just kept doing it. And finally, it just literally, when those big projects come, it's like a total transformation to everything. So, but it took a lot of effort. And I don't think everybody has a personality or stamina to do it, to be honest. You got to have the right expectations when you're going in.
So what does success look like for you in your business in the future? The big vision, what does that look like?
Are we going to go ahead with me first?
Go ahead.
Success. Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of, numbers, I mean, we're doubling our revenue this year. We're going to double it again the following year. And again, it's like we're pacing it. It's not always going to be our choice because we don't know necessarily which customers are going to come to us, when, because, it's up to them. But I'm pretty confident that we can start doubling every year. And we're very close to doubling it this year from last year. That's, a goal. So we have another goal would be to be a company that is very self-sufficient. So I'm not involved in everything. And then I'm going to look at what to do after that. So, it's getting there. We've got, like I said, we've been putting a lot of foundations in place. I have people in place. I have key positions in place, and I'm getting everybody to scale it and do their role and, perform their role at a higher level is what we're kind of working on right now, including myself. So that's really where I would like to see it to be, very sufficiently running without me being so involved in everything.
Yeah, and for me, it's a similar situation. The not only for I'm enrolled in a PhD program while I'm running this business, and there's only one of me to go around. So there's definitely that. But also, for us, it's all about the growth of the individuals who come in, through our pipeline. And so a great example of what we want to repeat at a large scale is the story of someone who I mentioned earlier, Hannah, who came to us as a junior flight instructor, has been with us for about 2.5 years at this point. I've just recently wrote a couple of letters of recommendation for her. She's interviewing for a couple of major airlines. I have no doubt that she's going to get a job offer here within the next few months. And so she went from being a junior flight instructor to an advanced flight instructor to then running the base in San Diego, growing the base in San Diego by 200%, being a minority equity holder in the company through our stock incentive program. And now she's got this reservoir of experience and leadership that is completely unlike any other junior pilot who's going to check in at a major airline. And that's what we want our students to look like, so that when the airlines look around at all of these students that they could hire, they see, oh, but those from FlexAir, those are the ones that we want, because they come from communities who we typically don't know how to speak to or don't have access to. They come to us with a lot more experience. They're great pilots, and they're well connected and inspiring as leaders in the community, so we can bring in more pilots, because there's a huge shortage, and nobody knows how we're going to recruit the next generation of pilots. And so, we think it's going to be by example. So that's what it looks like for me. Yeah, we want to double our revenue, get back on track for that. We were doing that year over year. With COVID, we went up by 15%, which is still pretty good for COVID. Well, just being, as a business, still being in business after the pandemic, I say is a gold star. But yeah, we want to get back on that rapid growth track and be all about creating people who are leaders in the community, not just flight training. I would consider that success.
Well, I definitely see that happening for both of your businesses. And I want to thank you both for taking the time to let us into your world. We have, once again, thank you, Paul Wins, founder and CEO of FlexAir, Lisa Scott, founder and CEO of Intuitive Edge. We appreciate the time. And for all of our viewers who are here, just to give you a quick recap on what we talked about was how to adjust your revenue model to drive customer adoption and attract investors. So we heard some really good things and some good notes. Asking for help early was a big one. Not expecting to be an expert overnight, and being patient with yourself about where your business is, because it takes time for it to grow. And being persistent on steroids. That was one I wrote down. I like that. Definitely making sure that the things and goals and visions and plans that you have for your business, you're able to enforce and keep going and push forward. So thank you all. Thank you so much, you both, for your time and your patience. Appreciate it. Any questions at all from our guests? Nope. Okay. Well, if not, you'll have an opportunity to follow up with our panelists today. So we'll be sure to share the information as well as this PowerPoint. Our upcoming events we have is a fireside chat from Founders First Capital Partners. And this will be with Juanita Lott, the founder and CEO of Bridgestream Software, on funding and acquisition by public company. And we have our next webinar next month, and that will be Service Business Exits, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we hope to see you next month, and thank you all for attending with us today, and you have a blessed and wonderful day.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.